The activity graph seems to have a lot of confusion around it. Many of the newer players or inexperienced players I play with tend to get really nervous when the activity graph starts going up. But what does the activity graph actually do, and mean for that matter? Well, I'll be answering that question in today's video. By the way, if you like these kinds of videos, make sure you hit the subscribe and bell notification buttons. I'm currently trying to reach my first 1,000 subscribers, and if we happen to reach it, I will have my mother play Phasmophobia on a professional farmhouse map. And of course, I'll be posting it up for your guys' enjoyment. Oh, and last thing, if you ever want to ask me questions live or hang out with an awesome community, you can always hop on my Twitch every Friday and Saturday evening. Links in the description below. So, the activity graph. What's it do? Well, to put it simply, it is the collective of all EMF readings in the house at any given time. This means that the activity graph is showing you the number of all the EMF readings in the house added together. You know, that EMF reader you bring with you on hunts to get evidence? Well, if you didn't know, everything the ghost interacts with or does creates an EMF reading. And depending on what the ghost does can create different levels of EMF. If you're already pretty familiar with how the EMF reader works and know its specifications, you can go ahead and skip here to see how we're going to be using that information with the activity graph. But if you're not entirely confident in your knowledge or just want a refresher or reminder of the specifics and see how it actually corresponds with the activity graph, be sure to keep watching. Now, there are 4 types of EMF readings the ghost can produce. EMF readings 2 through 5. An EMF 2 reading occurs when the ghost interacts with an object or activates its ability. There are currently 4 types of ghosts that can create an EMF 2 reading through their ability. That is the Jinn, the Phantom, the Wraith, and the Banshee. As for other EMF 2 readings, this could mean that the ghost moved an object, flicked the light switch on or off, or perhaps knocked on a window, and so on. I'll leave a link to the wiki page of the full list of interaction types down below. As for an EMF 3 reading, it only happens when the ghost throws something. And just something to take note of, the poltergeist does have a power to throw multiple objects at one time. However, I do not believe it creates an EMF 2 reading, only the EMF 3 readings of the thrown objects. Now, as for an EMF 4 reading, this only occurs when the ghost manifests itself. This means when it shows itself to you, it shows its shadow form to you, or it starts a hunt. And as for the last but most important EMF reading, EMF 5. Make note, there is no specific interaction the ghost does that makes EMF 5, but instead, every single interaction a ghost makes, assuming it's an EMF 5 evidence-based ghost, has a 25% chance to create an EMF 5 reading. This means if the ghost needs EMF 5 to be figured out as a ghost, everything it does from level 2 to level 4 interactions has a 25% chance of being EMF 5 instead. Now, that was a lot of information about the EMF reader and the different types of interactions the ghost can do to make specific kinds of readings. But why did I explain all that to you? Well, earlier I told you that the activity graph is the collective of all EMF readings. This means that every EMF reading the ghost makes is added together and shown on the activity graph. Well, now that you know what EMF level goes with what activity the ghost can do, you can now look at the activity graph and start figuring out what the ghost is doing in the house. But before I can explain to you how to read this information, there's one more trick you have to learn. Notice how when you turn the EMF reader on, it's always at a 1. Notice how we only look for readings from 2 to 5, but never an EMF 1 reading? Well, likewise, if you get an EMF 2 reading on your EMF reader, the activity graph will only go up 1, just like the EMF reader really only went up by 1. So in actuality, the number you're getting on your EMF reader will be added to the graph -1. So if you have an EMF 5, it'll go up by 4, a 3 will be a 2 would be a 1. This is important to note because if you were trying to read the graph for EMF 2 readings or 3 readings for some reason, you would need to know that they would be going up by 1s and 2s, not 2s and 3s. Well, now that we know how to translate the numbers over to the activity graph, how do we use this information? Is it even useful for anything? Well, not only is it helpful, it is very helpful. So if you somehow haven't connected the dots yet watching this video, you can use the activity graph to detect EMF 5 readings without an EMF reader. We can solve it exclusively through the activity graph. Remember how I said if you get an EMF reading of 5, the activity graph will go up by 4? Well, if you're noticing the activity graph is going up by 4s and down by 4s a lot, you're probably getting a lot of EMF 5 readings in the house. This means that if you see that happening, you can actually confirm EMF 5 without ever using an EMF reader. But I have to warn you, be careful. The activity graph only updates every second. This means that if the ghost throws 2 objects within the time frame of that second before it updates, you would get 2 EMF 3 readings, which means the activity graph will go up by 2 and 2. But if it happens in the same second, it'll go up by 4. See how that could be a problem? This problem is especially true if you're dealing with a poltergeist. EMF 5 is not an evidence of them, but they have an ability to throw multiple objects. So out of any ghost that's gonna give you a false reading, you definitely have to watch out for poltergeists. But wait, there's more. Not only can you use the activity graph to confirm EMF 5 readings, you can also use it to confirm there's no EMF 5 readings. And you might be wondering why that's useful. Well, if you didn't know, there are a total of 12 ghosts in the game, 6 of which are EMF 5. That means that half of the ghosts are either EMF 5 ghosts or not EMF 5 ghosts. Therefore, if you confirm EMF 5 readings or confirm there are no EMF 5 readings, you have now cut the amount of ghosts it could be in half. So how do we use the activity graph to confirm there's no EMF 5? Well, remember, every time the ghost interacts with something, if they're an EMF 5 ghost, they have a 25% chance to make an EMF 5 reading. This means that 1 in every 4 interactions should be an EMF 5, at least in essence. So if you've been sitting at the activity graph and noticed 8 activities pass you by and not a single one has given you an EMF 5 reading, you can safely affirm that it is not an EMF 5 ghost, as the probability after 4 interactions and no EMF 5 gets drastically lower. So real quick, I just want to go over the math so you understand how unlikely it is that it keeps repeating and getting no EMF 5s. So the way that we calculate this is through a simple formula, 1 minus the fraction of chances it can't happen to the power of times you try. So obviously, since there's a 25% chance or a 1/4 chance, there are 3/4 chances it doesn't happen. So 1 minus 0.75 turns out to be a 25% chance. But what happens if we do it 2 times? Well, the moment you get 2 interactions, you now have a 43.75% chance of getting an EMF 5 reading. Not quite doubled, but pretty close. So if you use my example and take 8 interactions the ghost gives you, you have a 89.99% chance, or basically a 90% chance that you get an EMF 5 reading. That means there is a 10% chance that you did not get an EMF 5. And as every single interaction goes on and on and on, the likelihood gets less and less and less. So after you see about 8 interactions without an EMF 5, you can assume with pretty definitive safety that it is not an EMF 5 ghost. But let's go to the insane levels and say you see 20 interactions. What will we get then? You would get a 99.68% chance of catching an EMF 5 reading after 20 interactions. So if you have 20 events happening on that activity graph and not one of them is an EMF 5, then you are for sure, absolutely positive, there's no possible way this is an EMF 5 ghost. If you are that unlucky to have that happen, I'm just honestly sorry for you. I just wanted to show you the statistics to show that I wasn't just spouting nonsense, but it's actually true. The probability is in your favor here. So if you've been sitting at the activity graph and noticed 8 or more interactions passing you by and not a single one has popped up as an EMF 5 reading, you can safely confirm that there is no EMF 5 ghost in this hunt. Due to the laws of probability, every interaction after the first 4 interactions on that activity graph not being an EMF 5 get drastically and drastically lower. However, if you've noticed the activity graph go up by 4 at least one time in that time frame, then you're probably going to need to check a little bit longer to see if the 4s keep coming. At that point, your goal is to see if it was a one-time event. Now that you've confirmed EMF 5 through the activity graph or no EMF 5 through the activity graph, you can now use that information to help you narrow down the ghost. Allow me to give you an example. Let's say you've already found fingerprints and you've been watching the activity graph for a while and noticed that it's never gone up by 4s, which means it's probably not an EMF 5 ghost. With this information, you can now deduce that the ghost cannot be a revenant nor a banshee. So now instead of having to check for 5 different kinds of ghosts, you have now narrowed it down to 3, all because you use the activity graph to confirm there's no EMF 5 reading, which means you don't have to waste your time with an EMF 5 reader. Quite frankly, I pretty much rarely use the EMF reader anymore because I can always figure out if it's an EMF 5 ghost through the activity graph. Awesome. I hope this helped you learn a new trick that you can use to flex on your friends or just randoms in the lobbies you join. And again, one more time in case you missed it, if you want to see my mother playing Phasmophobia, we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So make sure you hit the subscribe and bell notification buttons. And hitting the like button might be nice since you're already down there. And if you ever want to ask me questions live or just hang out with the nerdiest community ever, please hop by my Twitch channel every Friday and Saturday. Link in the description below. I'd love to see you there. Happy hunting, and I'll see you in the next video. Aninjaninja out. Smoke bomb.